Today, we are going to learn how to use CapCut Desktop. Most people are using the app, and that's great, but some people like to actually know what they're doing outside of their phone. So, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of everything that is going on and how to use it. So, firstly, we have our different interfaces. So, what we're going to do is if yours doesn't look like mine, usually you go to CapCut, layout, default layout. So over here, you have four main sections. Here you have import with your media, then your player, which is essentially when you do bring media, you'll have a preview of what's shown. You have your details here, and then you have your timeline. Now, depending on what you have on your timeline, these could change a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go to import, and usually you could just click over here in this area, and then we're going to go to tutorial, and then we're just going to drag all of this with us and click import. So now when you have your content, it'll be right here in import, and if you want to see how they look before you drag it on, you'll see it preview in player, and then you'll see the details and details. So let's say that I want to use the timeline. As you could see, I could drag material here and start to create. So all I would have to do is simply click, drag, and you'll automatically see it on the timeline. Boom. We have a video. We have something on our timeline. Now, you may see this and you may think a few things. So we're going to go over it. So right over here, we have our video. And here, we kind of have our timeline. This is us scrubbing the timeline, right? We're seeing how each frame looks on the video. Now, if you look here, you're noticing that the format is a little bit weird. Well, to change this, all you have to do is go here, and you can go to original, customized, and all these other settings. Usually, you'll go for 16 out of 9, which is a usual format if you're uploading to something like YouTube. But for most people, you'll use 9 by 16, which is something that you'll do for a reel, a YouTube short, or a TikTok. So let's just go here to 16 by 9, just to have it like that. And we could see high definition, everything's working fine. So what do we do now? Well, now we're going to look at what can we do with this one video. So if we go over here where our details tab is, we could see that we have even more options for us. So right over here we have position and size. This is essentially the scale. You have the position here, and you have the rotation. If you notice on the side over here, you could also add keyframes. This is something that you don't need to focus on too much right now because you want to just get a good idea of the editing in general. And so it's best to just play around with basic tools like scaling and positioning. And so you have the positioning, you have your blend modes. This is usually when you're layering, so you won't really see like a reason to do any of these unless you have another layer. But you also have your opacity here. You could also stabilize your image. So let's say that your image is a little bit shaky, you could turn on stabilization. And then you could also have canvas. I personally don't need canvas, but canvas is, adding something extra. So you have these different levels of blur. Then you have color. And essentially, the canvas is basically, think of it as a layer under whatever you have. So this canvas is under this video layer, but it's still the same thing. Does that make sense? So think of it as, it's almost like two separate layers put together. So this canvas is part of this video, but it's under the video until you lower the opacity. And so you could get some really cool effects with this. But usually I don't use it, but there's tons of ways that you could play around with canvas. Next, you have your cutout. Cutout is, essentially like your chroma keys. So let's say I want to remove all the blues here because that's basically everything. And you go to strength, and essentially you could play with the strengths, and then you can play with the shadows and go from there. Then you have your auto cutout, and this is usually for portraits. I don't usually need it, but the option is there. You also have your mask. Now, masks are a little bit weird here because you can't have a custom mask per se. You only have these few options, and if you want a separate video on how to use mask, I could do that. And then here you have enhanced, right? So here you have your face, this facial beauty, then manual stuff. Enhanced is usually when you have a face. So remember that CapCut is usually for, TikTok or short form content, and usually you have a face in there. And that's why these options are there. And then you have speed. So when you speed things up, as you can see on the timeline, your video automatically adjusts to that. And if I slow it down, it gets longer, goes faster, etc. And then it also has a voice tone change. So when it speeds up, it'll go along with it. You could also add animations, the speed, and let's say, for example, I have this. So this is something really cool that you could do. This is actually one of my favorite things, because if I were to do this in After Effects, for instance, it would be a little bit more difficult to do this, I'll be honest. And so you really are just plugging and playing when you're using CapCut. And this is honestly great, especially for beginners. Then you have animations, aka your transitions. So this is how it's going to look when it goes in and when it goes out, not like that. And so we're able to really see what happens. So let's see. We see that it just goes like that, or we have a combo. And usually these combos are really cool. I usually stick with the combo ones. Then we have motion tracker. So if we have a person walking or we have a face moving, we could use motion tracking. And then we have adjustments. So we could change the color, the temperature, the hue, saturation, simple color grading, nothing fancy, but this does get the job done when you want to do something quick. You could also sharpen it. I know a lot of people sharpen. You could add particles, fade. You have a vignette. There's really a lot of options here. I'm honestly surprised that something with this much capabilities is free. And then you have this. You play with the different colors that are actually inside of the video. Then you have your curves that you could play with the color. And yeah, that's what you could do with CapCut, especially with just one video. Now, I'm going to be making different videos and different tutorials, but that's that's really most of what you're going to learn. But if you want, I could go along with this. As you could tell, this is very just off the cuff. Um, this is kind of how I think. But if you want me to make something more in depth and you want me to take my time with this, let me know. But I know you're smart and I know you understand this. Um, so, right over here, we have our audio. This is all audio that you could use and you could add. Usually, for this, people usually just add it in TikTok. So you don't really need to worry too much, but it's good to have it here if you're uploading it anywhere else or you just want to use it as reference when you're editing. You also have sound effects, and these are royalty-free sound effects that you could use. You don't have to worry about where where it came from because it came straight from CapCut. You could also have your text. So you have default text and you could change that around. You have different effects for the text. You also have text templates. These are things that I haven't used, but these are great when you're in a pinch and you just want to make something quick. So this, for instance, would be great for a video. So if I were to add this here, and I'd put it here, and I could say, welcome to the islands. So I go here, and already that looks great. So keep that in mind when you want to do something. You could also have auto captions. So if there's a voice talking, you could automatically have captions here. You don't need any other software. You don't need Descript if you have CapCut. So you could use auto captions, and then if there's any issues, you could edit each one. I could make a separate video for captions. And then if you already have captions in a file, you could import them here. You also have stickers that you could add, and these are really fun. You know, some of them are a little bit adorable, but they do add flavor, and it's pretty cool because not a lot of places have graphics automatically installed in their video editor. So you have these stickers, and then you have effects, right? You have video effects, and then you have body effects. And these, you could just really have fun with it. Like, you probably already know some of these, but it's really good to just like play around with it and see what you like. Then you have your transitions. So these are a little bit different from the animations because with these transitions, you actually have to have a separate file. So let's say I copy and paste. I put plus. Now this transition will be between these two, and you see that came from pull in, but I could also add this. And so let's see, you see the swirl. So that's really cool. So you have different transitions that you could use, put them together. Some of these I haven't even downloaded them myself. And just so you know, if you see this icon here, this basically just means you just need to click on it so you have it available. But you don't need to do anything else. And that's it for transitions. Filters basically is just a filter. So if I want things black and white, I could have a filter as a separate file or as a separate layer. And now everything's black and white. And if I just want one section to be black and white, I could simply just move the filter over, and it could be color, and then it goes to black and white. and you can play with the different filters here. And then there's the adjustments, and these are imported, so you can import different adjustment layers if you have any, but usually you wouldn't need to, because usually the things that they give you and what you could play around with is amazing. And finally, how do we export? Well, you just go to File, Export, and that's it. It really depends on what you're going for. Just make sure video exporting is on, and then you click export, and you're good to go. And that's how you use CapCut Desktop. Let me know if you have any comments below, and I'd love to be able to help.